The sheer weight of his son's words was worse than any blow, striking not just his face, but the memory of the woman they had just lost. "You can't bring Eleanor back, and my wife's birthday is only once a year," Julian had declared, a chilling dismissal disguised as common sense. Yet, barely 24 hours after inflicting this profound insult, Julian returned, approaching his father with a crucial request, as though the chasm between them had never opened. Victor knew, instantly, that fate had handed him the opportunity to repay the debt for the contempt shown to him and to his late wife. The true reckoning was about to begin. The morning sunlight sliced through the kitchen window, catching the fine dust motes dancing where Eleanor's gentle morning humming used to fill the air. My hand shook uncontrollably as I adjusted the stiff black tie for the third time, the expensive silk suddenly feeling restrictive. The time was 8:30 a.m. On the counter, Eleanor's empty coffee cup sat sentinel, a faint smear of lipstick still marking the rim, a monumental symbol of the void she left. I reached for the phone and dialed Julian's number. For agonizing rings later, his voice, thick with sleep and annoyance, answered. "Yeah. Julian, it's Dad. I managed. Straightening my spine. The funeral starts at 11:30. Loud music immediately thumped through the line, punctuated by raucous laughter. I heard Celeste's voice, sharp and high, shrieking instructions about party decorations. Julian cleared his throat, the sound dry and rehearsed. "Dad, I told you yesterday. Celeste's birthday party is tonight. We've been planning this for months." His words were cold, like being doused in ice water. I gripped the receiver so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Your mother's funeral is today, Julian. Once in a lifetime. Look, Mom's not coming back." He repeated the devastating phrase. "But my wife's birthday only happens once a year. We've got caterers coming, the band's setting up." He continued, trying to rationalize his cruelty. "Your mother raised you for 35 years, and I appreciate that, but I can't just abandon Celeste on her special day. You understand, right?" The dial tone buzzed, an empty, accusing sound. I sat for precisely 3 minutes, staring at the reading glasses Eleanor had left beside the phone. The kitchen clock confirmed 8:47 a.m. My wedding ring, catching the morning light, shone on the counter she had meticulously cleaned last week. On the counter, I found the funeral program. Julian was listed prominently as a pallbearer. With deliberate, angry strokes, I scratched his name out with my pen. At the Riverside Cemetery, faces turned toward me, filled with expectant confusion. Patricia, Eleanor's sister, asked repeatedly, "Where's Julian?" I offered the practice lie. "Important commitments." The words tasted like ash. 23 people came to honor my wife of 40 years. Her son was conspicuously absent. I stood completely alone next to the casket. Eleanor's garden club friends and our longtime neighbors formed a respectful ring around me. The empty space where Julian should have been felt immense. "She was so proud of that boy," Mrs. Henderson whispered to me, her voice thick with sympathy, always talking about his success. I merely nodded, my throat too tight for speech. Even to her final breath, Eleanor had staunchly defended him. "He's just busy with his new life." She had excused him when he skipped her chemotherapy appointments. "Young couples need space," she'd insist. The officiant spoke eloquently of family bonds and eternal love. I watched the dirt begin to fall onto the polished wood. Each shovelful buried not only Eleanor, but also my last remaining illusions about the character of our son. Driving home, I pressed my hands against the steering wheel until my knuckles shone white. The passenger seat stretched emptily beside me, where Eleanor always preferred to sit. She had insisted we use her little Honda, claiming it was better for the environment than my heavy truck. The radio played her favorite song, and I immediately turned off. Our street in Riverton was unchanged, the same neat lawns and painted mailboxes, the life we had meticulously built together. I pulled into the driveway but sat there for a moment, steeling myself to face the massive emptiness inside the front door. The key turned with its familiar, small click. I hung my keys on a hook that Eleanor had installed, a small, everyday motion that suddenly felt monumental in the silence. There was no humming from the kitchen, No television murmuring. Only the old house settling around the 40 years of memories we had created. I loosened my tie and sank into my armchair. It was a heavy brown leather one that Eleanor always claimed clashed terribly with her floral curtains. She had planned to redecorate for years, but I'd always been too preoccupied with building sterling structures. Now, those curtains would remain precisely where they were forever. Our wedding photo smiled at me from the mantelpiece. Eleanor was radiant at 23, wearing her grandmother's lace dress. We had married right here in Riverton, promising each other everything we had. I realized I had delivered on that promise, perhaps too well. Memories flooded back. Julian taking his first unsteady steps across this very living room, his chubby hands reaching for Eleanor's outstretched arms. Birthday parties with handmade paper decorations, because store-bought ones were a luxury we couldn't afford. Eleanor working punishing double shifts at the diner, while I labored to get the construction company started. She never uttered a single complaint, not when I worked 16-hour days, not when we subsisted solely on macaroni and cheese for weeks. "We're building Julian's future," she would whisper softly after he had fallen asleep between us in our bed. Too young for his own room. I found her Bible on the nightstand, bookmarks still marking specific psalms. A small, folded, handwritten note fluttered out. "My dearest Victor, please don't let Julian forget us. We gave him everything we had." I hope that was enough. "All my love, E." My hands trembled reading her careful, elegant script. In the back of her closet, I found the special cedar box she'd kept hidden. Inside were Julian's report cards, meticulously saved from kindergarten through college. Every A+ was celebrated. Every achievement, however small, was treasured. She had written tiny little notes on each one. "So proud. Our brilliant boy." The graduation photos hurt the most. Julian in his cap and gown, the degree paid for entirely by Eleanor's overtime earnings and my weekend side jobs. The total cost was over $200,000. His proud smile never once acknowledged the crushing sacrifice that fueled his success. I pulled out my desk calculator and began adding. The down payment for his house, $350,000. His elaborate wedding to Celeste, $75,000. His first luxury car, $35,000. The graduate school program he insisted upon but abandoned, $48,000. Then there were the emergency loans for lavish vacations, Celeste shopping binges, and several failed business ventures. Eleanor's coffee mug remained exactly where she left it in the dishwasher. Her romance novel lay open on her nightstand, the bookmark waiting for eyes that would never return to the page. Get well cards from friends covered the kitchen counter. People who cared more about her final months than her own son did. The running total kept climbing. Julian's total financial take over 15 years was $847,000. Nearly $1 million of our lives, handed over freely with love and profound hope. I remember my own father, a hard man who gave me nothing but the expectation that I make my own way. Build your own character, he had instructed. Perhaps he had been right. Darkness fell outside the windows. I didn't bother turning on any lights. I heard a car pull into the driveway, the engine idling. I did not rise to check if Julian finally wanted to talk. He knew precisely where to find me. The engine revved aggressively and drove away. At 6 a.m. the next morning, I was sitting at my large mahogany desk. File folders were spread out in precise, neat rows. Julian education, Julian house, Julian wedding. My coffee sat, growing cold, as I opened a calculator app to begin the full reckoning that Eleanor had been too kind to ever demand. The reading glasses reflected the glow of the computer screen as I pulled up years of bank records. 15 years of transactions, each one meticulously labeled. Transfer to Julian or loan Julian emergency. The papers rustled softly in the quiet house, the only sounds of my new, desolate reality. College tuition for the first 4 years totaled $52,000 annually. I vividly remembered writing those massive checks. Eleanor worked extra shifts just to ensure we could cover our own household bills while our son partied carelessly at Midland University. Then came graduate school, another $48,000 for an MBA he ultimately never used dropping out of the program quickly to find himself in Europe. That expensive European trip cost $35,000. Just temporary, Dad, until I get established, he'd promised. The purchase of his house nearly bankrupted us. Julian, only 25 at the time, stood in our living room with Celeste's engagement ring glittering on her finger. We found the perfect place, but we're a little short on the down payment, he'd explained. I co-signed a mortgage and covered every single penny of the $350,000 down payment. Family helps family, Julian had declared, hugging me tightly. I'll pay you back once the business takes off. What business? He had been working for Sterling Structures since graduation, drawing a salary he had not earned while learning skills I desperately hoped he would value. Eleanor's small, secret notebook fell out from between the files. Her precise handwriting documented every sacrifice. Anniversary dinner canceled. Needed $5,000 for Julian's car repair. Postponed my doctor visit. Julian's wedding costs higher than expected. Bought generic groceries this month. Sent Julian money for Celeste's birthday. Her final entry cut the deepest. We gave Julian everything. I hope he remembers us kindly. The calculator's final total stood firm at $847,000, more than $750,000. My own father had simply given me $20 and a handshake when I left home. I had built everything from nothing, and Julian perceived it all as his immediate inheritance to spend recklessly while we were still alive. I remembered him brazenly calling my company a family business last Christmas, acting as if he had built it alongside me instead of merely walking into a ready-made position. Celeste had nodded approvingly, already budgeting how to spend the profits I had earned through 40 years of backbreaking labor. My business mindset finally kicked in. This was no longer grief requiring comfort. This was a problem requiring a definitive solution. I had allowed emotion to rule me for too long, constantly making excuses for behavior that Eleanor had worried about in private. Maybe we're doing too much for him, she had once whispered after his latest financial emergency. Her photograph watched me silently from the corner of my desk as I closed the files. I stood up with a newfound resolve, feeling something harder than sadness settling firmly in my chest. You were right to worry, I told her picture. The phone rang. Julian's name illuminated the caller ID. I stared at it for 4 rings, then answered. Hey, Dad. Hope you're doing okay after yesterday. Julian's voice carried that familiar, artificially cheerful tone he always used when he needed money. I noted that he carefully avoided mentioning the funeral specifically. He didn't ask how I was coping without Eleanor. I'm managing. I kept my voice perfectly steady, staring directly at the financial documents spread across my desk. Good. Listen, I'm calling because we need to cover some unexpected costs. Celeste's party went amazing, but we kind of went overboard. You know how it is. You only turned 32 once, right? In the background, I could distinctly hear Celeste's voice urging him to talk about the band. Yeah, so we hired this incredible live band, took everyone to that new steakhouse downtown, got Celeste this gorgeous diamond bracelet. She deserves the best, you know? But now the credit card bills are rolling in, and we're looking at about $15,000 in immediate payments. $15,000. I calculated quickly. This will be loan number 47 over 15 years. Yesterday, I had buried my wife. Today, my son wanted money to cover a frivolous party. So, can you just wire it to my account today? Celeste is really stressed about the bills, and you know how she gets when she's worried. The moment stretched into eternity. I looked at Eleanor's photograph, then back at the neat, damning columns of numbers documenting Julian's total cost to our marriage. No, I said. A heavy silence followed. What do you mean, no? Is there a problem with the bank? I mean, no, Julian. I won't be giving you any more money. The cheerful, practiced mask finally slipped from his voice. Are you seriously saying no to me right now? After everything we've been through this week? Everything we've been through? As if he had suffered through Eleanor's funeral instead of throwing a massive party. You're 35 years old, Julian. So what does that have to do with helping your son out of a jam? It's not like you can't afford it, he scoffed. Celeste's voice escalated sharply in the background. Tell him we need that money. We already spent it. I said no. I repeated. The words felt strange, liberating. The very first time I had ever denied Julian anything significant. This is unbelievable. His voice turned cold and resentful. Mom just died, and you're being petty about money. She wants you to help us. The manipulation was seamless, utterly practiced. How many times had he wielded his mother's name to get what he wanted? How many times had Eleanor and I meekly folded because he invoked family loyalty? Your mother wanted you at her funeral, I stated. Julian's breathing grew audibly harsh. Fine. We'll figure this out ourselves. Max out more cards, borrow from Celeste's parents, whatever. But don't expect us to come around much anymore if this is how you're going to be. The threat hung powerfully in the air. For 35 years, it had worked flawlessly. Julian's presence was a reward for my money. His absence was a punishment for saying no. I understand, I said calmly. You what? I understand. Take care, Julian. I hung up before he could muster a response. The phone sat silent on my desk, no longer a tool of his manipulation. For the first time in decades, I had ended a conversation with my son on my own terms. I opened my laptop and navigated to Julian's employee file. Tomorrow morning, we would have a very different conversation, one conducted entirely in the office where I was the boss, not the father who had forgotten the difference. If Julian wanted to treat me like a stranger, I would professionally accommodate him. At 7:30 a.m. the following day, I walked through the Sterling Structures lobby. This was 2 full hours before Julian's usual arrival time. His employee photo hung proudly on the management wall, smiling confidently in a suit I had purchased for him. Today, I studied that image with entirely new eyes, seeing entitlement where I had only seen promise before. In my office, Julian's personnel files were spread across my desk like definitive evidence in a court proceeding. 8 years of employment records told the true, sobering story. Missed deadlines, endless contractor complaints, wildly inflated expense reports, projects perpetually delayed because Julian prioritized lengthy lunches over supervision, and client relationships damaged by his casual attitude toward commitments. I had consistently excused all of it. Family loyalty, Margaret's gentle reminders that Julian was still learning. But these documents revealed an undeniable pattern of professional negligence that would have terminated any other employee's career years ago. At 8:45 a.m., I called Monica Hayes to my office. As the HR director, she would need to handle the extensive paperwork correctly. Her face registered no surprise whatsoever when I calmly explained my decision. She had been diligently documenting Julian's infractions for months, patiently waiting for me to finally act. I'll prepare the termination documents immediately, she said quietly. Security escort? I asked. Yes. Standard protocol for management terminations, Monica confirmed. I practiced the termination speech in the office mirror, watching my reflection deliver the words with steady professionalism. No emotion, no explanation beyond what was legally required. Julian would enter this room as my employee's son and leave as a terminated worker. At 9:30 a.m., Julian strolled in, already 15 minutes late. He was joking loudly with the receptionist about his recovery from Celeste's party. His laughter echoed through the lobby while coworkers nervously glanced toward my closed office door. He stopped nonchalantly at the coffee machine, completely oblivious to the storm rapidly brewing ahead. Julian, please come to my office immediately. My voice, broadcast through the intercom, carried a new, unfamiliar authority. Julian's casual response drifted up the hallway. Sure, Dad, just let me grab my coffee. Now, Julian, I insisted. The sudden silence that followed told me he had finally registered the change in tone. His footsteps approached slowly, heavier than usual. When he opened my door and saw Monica waiting there with a stack of paperwork, his confident smile faltered completely. What's with the formal setup? He attempted his usual casual, familiar tone, but genuine uncertainty crept through. I remained firmly seated, my hands neatly folded on the desk. Julian, your employment with Sterling Structures is terminated, effective immediately. His forced laugh sounded brittle. Very funny, Dad. What's this really about? I slid the termination papers across the highly polished surface. Please review these documents and sign where indicated. The legal papers seemed to physically burn his fingers as he picked them up. His eyes scanned the dense legal language, his face visibly growing pale. You can't be serious. This is our family business. This decision is based solely on your work performance and professional conduct. My voice remained perfectly level, businesslike. Your position has been eliminated due to necessary restructuring. This is about yesterday's phone call, isn't it? His voice cracked slightly. Look, I'm sorry about the money thing. We can work this out. Security will now escort you to collect your personal items, I announced. Julian's demeanor instantly shifted from disbelief to desperate pleading. Mom wouldn't want this. You know she wouldn't. He leaned forward, attempting to invoke the crushing guilt that had always worked successfully before. I pressed the silent security button. This is a business decision, not a personal one. Mike Thompson, the security chief, appeared efficiently in the doorway, professional but clearly sympathetic. Julian's face flushed an angry red as he realized the humiliation was absolute and real. Co-workers began gathering in the hallway, watching their former boss's son being escorted out like a common criminal. Dad, please. Julian's final appeal came as he quickly grabbed his coffee mug and a framed desktop photo of Celeste. Think about what this means. I met his eyes fully for the first time during the entire encounter. I have. Through my office window, I watched him load his pathetic collection of personal items into his car. His shoulders shook, either with rage or profound grief. I couldn't distinguish which. When he looked back up at the building one last time, I deliberately turned away. Monica returned with the signed paperwork. All access codes have been changed. His computer access is terminated. I removed Julian's employee photo from the management wall myself, placing it face down in a desk drawer. The empty space above the desk looked cleaner somehow. My secretary knocked tentatively. Mr. Victor, someone is here to see you without an appointment. Designer heels clicked aggressively across the marble lobby floor. Celeste Julian stormed past a reception desk without waiting for permission. Her perfectly styled hair was slightly disheveled from the cold wind. Julian followed closely behind her, looking utterly embarrassed and defeated. A mere shadow of the confident man who had entered the building an hour earlier. How dare you humiliate Julian like this? Celeste's voice carried through the open office door as she pointed an accusatory finger directly at me. I remained calmly seated, refusing to acknowledge her theatrical entrance. Julian quickly positioned himself between Celeste and my desk, his humiliation deepening. Celeste, let me handle this, he pleaded. She ignored him completely. We have bills to pay, Victor, a lifestyle to maintain. This family business belongs to Julian, too. This is a private workplace. I said calmly and firmly. You need to leave. Her face flushed a deeper, angrier red. We deserve severance pay. At least 6 months. Julian's worked here for 8 years. You owe us. Julian's weak attempts at mediation failed entirely. Dad, please, can we discuss this privately? No. Celeste cut him off sharply. He needs to hear this. I know about wrongful termination laws. Julian was an at-will employee. I replied evenly, citing the legal fact. No severance is required by law or contract. Celeste's attack immediately turned personal, delivered with venomous precision. Eleanor would be ashamed of how you're treating her son. You're clearly having some kind of breakdown, aren't you? Just a bitter old man taking out your grief on us. Julian's face went white. Celeste, please don't say that, he whispered. My jaw tightened, but I maintained full composure. This was exactly the manipulative reaction I had anticipated from her. Julian tried desperately to regain control. Dad, I know I messed up at the funeral. I truly am sorry, but destroying my career won't bring Mom back. Think about what this means for our family, for future grandchildren. The words hung in the air like smoke from a dying fire. I looked at this man who shared my DNA but seemed to possess none of my values. What family? Celeste's financial threats escalated rapidly. We'll sue for our share of Eleanor's estate. Julian is entitled to half of everything. We know about the life insurance policy. Eleanor left everything to me. I stated the simple, deflating truth. That piece of information stunned her into momentary silence. That's impossible. We're consulting Attorney Lee. I pressed the security button. Mike Thompson returned instantly, this time with backup. Their intimidating presence filled the office doorway. Several employees had gathered in the hallway, drawn by the loud commotion. "I'm not leaving." Celeste screamed as security approached her. "This is theft. This is abuse." Her resistance was futile, but incredibly loud. The entire office floor heard her accusations and threats as she was escorted forcefully through the lobby. When the noise finally faded, Julian remained alone with me. His last-ditch emotional manipulation came in a soft whisper. "I'm all the family you have left." The words, intended to break me, instead clarified everything. I looked at the stranger who had worn my son's face for 35 years and delivered the crucial truth he needed to hear. "No, you're just someone who used to be my son." Julian's face genuinely crumbled for a brief moment. I saw the flicker of the little boy who had once run into my arms after school. Then the moment passed, and only the hardened, entitled stranger remained. He left without speaking another word. I addressed my concerned employees with perfect professional calm, explaining this was a personal matter that would not impact business operations. Most nodded their understanding. They had witnessed Julian's poor performance for years. "Please ensure that Mrs. Celeste Julian is never allowed in this building again," I instructed security. Alone in my office, I felt my hands slightly trembling. The hardest part was over. I looked at Eleanor's photo on my desk. "I hope you understand." Opening my computer, I searched for estate planning attorneys. It was time to accelerate the next phase of my plan. I scheduled an immediate appointment with attorney Daniel Lee for that very afternoon. Then, I noticed Julian's birthday marked on my digital calendar for next month. I deleted the entry permanently. The prestigious law offices of Lee and Partners occupied the top floor of Riverton's tallest building. At 2:30 p.m., I walked into the reception area, carrying my leather briefcase. Inside were Eleanor's will, insurance documents, and the damning financial records that would completely reshape my family's future. The receptionist recognized me immediately, escorting me directly to Daniel Lee's corner office. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall windows, overlooking downtown Riverton, illuminating rows of thick law books and active case files, creating an atmosphere of serious business. Daniel rose from behind his large mahogany desk. Genuine concern etched into his eyes. We had been close friends for 20 years. He had handled Eleanor's will, the incorporation of my business, and countless sensitive legal matters. "How are you holding up, Victor?" His voice was sincere. I declined his offer of coffee and settled into the leather chair across from his desk. "I need to make some significant changes to my estate planning," I stated. Daniel's expression instantly shifted into professional mode. "Of course. Updating beneficiaries after Eleanor's passing is standard procedure." "No," I said, extracting the documents from my briefcase. "I'm removing Julian entirely." The words hit Daniel like a physical blow. His professional composure momentarily wavered as he fully processed the devastating implications. "Victor, I am obligated to understand what is driving this decision." I calmly explained Julian's absence from the funeral, including his exact, heartless words about Celeste's birthday party being his priority. Daniel's face darkened with frustration and sadness as I provided each detail. As both Eleanor's friend and our family attorney, he understood the profound magnitude of Julian's betrayal. "I want to create a completely new will," I continued. "The primary beneficiary will be the Eleanor Victor Memorial Foundation." Daniel leaned forward, his focus shifting now to the legal implications. "Victor, I must ensure you are thinking clearly about such a monumental decision." "I've never been more certain of anything," I assured him. I outlined my entire vision: education scholarships for underprivileged children and significant cancer research funding, causes that Eleanor had passionately supported throughout her entire life. Julian was to be explicitly and permanently excluded, along with any future descendants. Daniel's admiration visibly grew as I detailed a robust foundation structure. Moving all my company assets into an irrevocable trust would protect everything from any potential lawsuits. I would retain control during my lifetime, with the foundation assuming full ownership upon my death. We'll need to change all insurance beneficiaries immediately, Daniel noted, making extensive, detailed notes. This is extremely thorough planning, Victor. I had also decided the family home would be sold, with all proceeds donated to the foundation. Eleanor's jewelry would be auctioned for charity. The only exception was Eleanor's wedding ring, which I instructed be buried with me when my time came. What about Julian's childhood belongings? Daniel asked gently. Donated. I replied, I'm systematically removing Julian from every facet of my life. Daniel fulfilled a professional duty by formally questioning my mental state and decision-making capacity. My rational, detailed responses and meticulous planning demonstrated completely clear thinking. He gradually transitioned from a concerned friend to an admiring professional. The formal signing ceremony involved 2 legal witnesses from Daniel's firm. My steady signature contrasted sharply with profound magnitude of each decision. Daniel explained that these documents took immediate legal effect. Julian was now completely disinherited. I want Julian to receive formal notice of this change, I instructed. Additional legal protections followed swiftly. Power of attorney documents removing Julian's authority, medical directives excluding him from health care decisions, and a living will with specific instructions about my end-of-life care. Daniel meticulously documented my mental competency. Tomorrow, I would visit the Capital Trust Bank to update all accounts, removing Julian as beneficiary from retirement funds and investment portfolios. The meticulous foundation planning brought an unexpected sense of peace. I nominated Daniel as a trustee, discussed the board structure, and began planning the first scholarship recipients. Eleanor's memory would be deeply honored through education, something she had always highly valued. Eleanor would be incredibly proud of this foundation, Victor, Daniel said as we concluded the meeting. She always believed in education and helping others. For the first time in days, I felt genuine satisfaction, replacing the cold, hard determination. My transformation from a grieving, manipulated father to a purposeful philanthropist was now complete. We shook hands outside the law office. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Julian, the first concrete sign he was beginning to realize the seriousness of his situation. I deleted the voicemails without listening and walked toward my car. The next phase was waiting. The Riverton Country Club's elegant lobby greeted me with its familiar luxury. Mahogany panels, twinkling crystal chandeliers, and dignified oil portraits of the founding members created an atmosphere of established values and inherited wealth. As treasurer of the monthly board meeting, I had walked these halls for 15 years. 12 board members were gathered around a polished conference table, discussing routine club business before our official meeting began. The scent of leather furniture and fresh coffee mingled with quiet, whispered conversations about recent local events. William Hayes, our board president, approached me with genuine sympathy. Victor, the memorial service was truly beautiful. Eleanor would have been pleased. Thank you for the flowers, I replied graciously. Patricia, Eleanor's sister and a longtime club member, joined our conversation. I kept looking for Julian during the service. Where was he? The question I had fully expected finally hung in the air. I paused, then decided that telling the truth would serve Eleanor's memory better than diplomacy. Julian chose not to attend his mother's funeral. I revealed. The shocked silence spread like silent ripples across water. Patricia's face instantly went pale. What do you mean, chose not to? I delivered Julian's exact words about Celeste's birthday party being more important. The visible disgust on the faces of the board members told me everything I needed to know about their values. Values Julian had casually abandoned. William's wife, Nancy, had been discreetly eavesdropping from the hallway. Within minutes, she was making frantic phone calls. The story reached the local ladies' bridge club within the hour, then spread through Riverton social elite like rapid wildfire. I returned home unaware of the fierce social storm I had consciously unleashed. The first painful consequences struck Celeste the very next morning. Her yoga instructor at the exclusive studio politely asked her to leave mid-session. We prefer members with family values. Came the cold, clear explanation. Julian's standing lunch invitation at the country club was immediately rescinded with a polite, but firm phone call. Their regular table at Romano's restaurant suddenly became permanently unavailable. Celeste's confusion quickly turned to growing, desperate anger as undeniable patterns began to emerge. Saturday morning brought Julian's most profound humiliation. His golf foursome made transparent, awkward excuses, and left the course early. The pro shop manager delicately suggested that Julian might be more comfortable elsewhere. He walked alone to his car, finally understanding that everyone knew the funeral story. Celeste's shopping experience at Bergdorf's boutique shattered her remaining illusions. The sales associate's cold reception replaced years of warm service. Her platinum credit application faced mysterious delays. The manager eventually suggested she might prefer shopping elsewhere. Julian's professional isolation proved equally devastating. Job interviews were canceled without any explanation. Former business contacts stopped returning his urgent calls. His networking lunch at the Chamber of Commerce became awkward and painfully brief. Potential employers knew the entire story long before he even arrived. The final straw came at Elite Salon, where Celeste's regular appointment was abruptly canceled. Overhearing other clients discussing her heartless husband, she fled the salon in tears. The local newspaper society columnist made a point of mentioning the disappointing absence at Eleanor's service. Church congregation members expressed open disapproval. Former friends openly avoided Julian and Celeste at all public events. Julian's desperate attempts to explain the situation fell on universally deaf ears. His claims that I was exaggerating were met with widespread disbelief. Riverton's tight-knit community had delivered its final verdict. Celeste's inevitable breakdown arrived. She confronted Julian about their ruined reputation, hysterically demanding that he fix the situation immediately. When Julian miserably admitted he didn't know how, she violently threatened to leave him if things didn't improve drastically. I heard about these social consequences from various sources, feeling satisfaction that justice was being served. Naturally, Riverton's conservative values aligned perfectly with my own. Family loyalty, profound respect for dead, and basic human decency. Julian had violated all of them. The community was honoring Eleanor's memory by unequivocally rejecting those who dishonored it. My phone rang during breakfast. It was a Capital Trust Bank manager's voice, conveying professional concern. Mr. Victor, Julian, and Celeste's mortgage payment is 30 days overdue. You're still guaranteeing the loan, correct? I paused, considering the powerful implications. I'd like to schedule a meeting tomorrow morning to discuss changes to my guarantees, I replied. Financial pressure would finally complete what social exile had powerfully begun. At 9 a.m., I walked through Capital Trust Bank's marble lobby. I passed oil portraits of founding members who had built their fortunes on honest work and unwavering family values. Bank manager David Harrison's corner office overlooked the wide Mississippi River, where barges carried the cargo that built Riverton's prosperity for generations. David's nervous demeanor was immediately evident. He reviewed Julian and Celeste's extensive files spread across his mahogany desk. Mortgage papers, loan agreements, and guarantee forms created a clear paper trail of financial dependency that was about to reach its absolute end. Victor, I truly appreciate you coming in on such short notice. David's voice carried uncomfortable formality. Julian's mortgage is now 60 days delinquent. The total amount due is $18,400. I sat perfectly composed, hands folded. I understand you need my guaranteed payment. Well, yes, as you've done for the past 3 months. David's assumption hung heavy in the air like smoke before fire. I'm withdrawing my guarantee, effective immediately, I announced. The banker's face instantly went pale. I don't understand. You've guaranteed this loan for 8 years. I presented pre-drafted legal documents prepared by attorney Daniel Lee's office. You'll find everything entirely in order. 30 days' notice, as required by law. David frantically called the bank's legal department, while I sat quietly, watching the morning traffic crossing the bridge that Eleanor and I had walked countless times. The lawyer's voice, crackling over the speakerphone, confirmed what David feared. My withdrawal was perfectly legal. This means we'll have to officially begin foreclosure proceedings, David said weakly. I understand. Please expedite the process, I instructed. Meanwhile, across town, Julian endured his 10th agonizing job interview in 2 weeks. The interviewer's cold reception followed a cruel pattern he had learned to expect. His prepared explanations about seeking new challenges fell on deaf ears that had already heard the full funeral story. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Julian. We'll be in touch." The polite dismissal carried absolute finality. Julian's growing desperation showed in his slumped shoulders as he walked slowly back to his aging Toyota. The BMW had been repossessed the previous month. That afternoon, Celeste discovered the catastrophic credit card crisis at Nordstrom. Her platinum card was humiliatingly declined for a simple purchase: mascara to replace the one she had cried away. "There must be some mistake," she insisted to the embarrassed sales associate. Her angry call to the credit card company revealed the brutal truth. "Your co-signer has officially withdrawn his guarantee. The account is suspended pending full payment of the outstanding balance." Celeste's public humiliation deepened instantly as other customers watched her furiously argue with customer service. The crystal-clear reality hit them both. Victor had systematically removed every single financial safety net they had taken for granted. Julian and Celeste returned home to find their electricity completely disconnected. The utility company's notice cited unpaid bills totaling over $1,200. Julian's desperate negotiations with the payment department ended abruptly when they discovered his employment termination. Their first night by candlelight became an immediate, terrifying crash course in reality. Celeste frantically paced their dark living room, designer heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floors, bitterly accusing Julian of destroying their entire lives. His weak attempts to blame Victor for being vindictive were met with her growing, uncontrolled hysteria. "Fix this, or I'm gone," she declared with venomous finality. Julian's desperate credit applications were denied instantly. His debt-to-income ratio had become impossible without steady employment. Celeste's maxed-out cards offered zero relief. For the first time, they discussed bankruptcy with genuine, stomach-churning fear. The hasty garage sale of their luxury items brought pathetic returns. Wedding gifts that had cost guests hundreds sold for $20. Former friends drove past their house, but pointedly failed to stop. Celeste watched her jewelry collection disappear piece by piece to strangers, while Julian sold his expensive golf clubs to a teenager. The BMW's repossession in broad daylight provided the neighborhood's entertainment. Julian's humiliation was absolute as he removed personal items under the repo man's impatient watch. Celeste screamed profanities at the driver, while neighbors peered from behind their curtains. I drove past their house that evening, observing the visible chaos with quiet satisfaction. This was not cruelty, it was consequence. Eleanor had always taught that actions inevitably have results. Julian was finally learning that difficult lesson. When Julian called, begging for a face-to-face meeting, claiming he had something important to say, I agreed to meet him at Oakwood Commons the next afternoon. It was the same park where I had taught him to ride a bicycle 30 years ago, when he still looked at me with unconditional love instead of cold calculation. I hung up and immediately looked at a framed photo of young Julian on his bicycle, remembering simpler times. Then I set the photo face down on my desk. 6 months after my bank meeting, the county foreclosure auction took place on the courthouse steps. I observed the scene from across the street in my black sedan, watching as 1247 Maple Avenue, Julian and Celeste's former dream home, went up for public sale. The county auctioneer read the legal description with bureaucratic precision, while a small crowd of real estate investors and curious onlookers gathered. Julian and Celeste stood miserably apart from the crowd. Celeste's tears reflected the morning sunlight. Through my binoculars, I watched their final public humiliation unfold. Opening bid is $280,000 for this 4-bedroom colonial, auctioneer announced. A woman in a Navy business suit raised her hand confidently. Julian frankly tried to identify her, while whispering urgently to Celeste. The bidding quickly reached $315,000, with only 2 participants remaining, the mystery woman and a local contractor. When my attorney, Daniel Lee, arrived and nodded subtly to the woman, Julian's growing suspicion crystallized into shocked realization. "That's Dad's lawyer," he whispered hoarsely to Celeste, his voice carrying across the quiet crowd. Celeste's disbelief was audible. He couldn't. Julian's desperate attempt to approach the mystery bidder was professionally blocked by courthouse security. The auction continued with mechanical efficiency, while Julian's world collapsed in real time. $317,000 called a woman in navy blue. Going once. Going twice. Sold. Julian's legs gave out beneath him. Celeste's loud scream, "This is our home," echoed off the courthouse walls as the auctioneer's gavel sealed their fate. I exited my car and walked slowly toward the courthouse steps. My presence immediately caused Julian to comprehend the full scope of my 6-month calculated strategy. The guarantee withdrawal, the perfect timing of the auction, the bid amount calculated to match the mortgage balance exactly. Everything had been orchestrated with precise business acumen. The mystery bidder revealed herself to be Monica Hayes, my trusted HR director, acting as agent for the newly formed Mitchell Holdings, LLC. Julian stumbled toward me on shaking legs, his broken voice barely audible. "How could you do this to us?" "I didn't do anything," I replied calmly. "The bank did." His desperate pleas about Eleanor's favorite garden and her deep love for the house were met with my cold, unwavering response. "Eleanor's not here to see what you become." Celeste's final attack came as a wild lunge, screaming accusations about elder abuse and my mental incompetence. Daniel Lee calmly documented her hysteria, while security escorted her away from me. The entire chaotic scene provided perfect evidence of their true, desperate characters. 2 weeks later, the moving truck looked pitifully small against the scope of their former life. Celeste threw clothes violently into suitcases. Julian, meanwhile, carefully wrapped Eleanor's crystal vase, the last treasured gift connecting him to his mother. Their former neighbors watched, but offered no solace or help. The social exile was now complete. Celeste's inevitable ultimatum came that evening. "I can't live like this anymore." Her confession about actively talking to her ex-boyfriend marked the absolute breaking point of their marriage. "I'm married into a wealthy family, not this poverty," she spat. Her final, cruel words cut deepest. "Your father was right about us." Julian spent his final night completely alone in the empty house, walking through rooms now filled only with memories of better times. In the kitchen drawer, he found Eleanor's hidden note, "Julian, remember we love you." For the first time, genuine tears of regret fell as he finally grasped what he had truly and irrevocably lost. I received the house keys from Monica Hayes with quiet satisfaction. My decision to renovate the house and donate it to a deserving family would finally complete the circle. Eleanor would approve of this justice. That evening, Julian called from a payphone outside a cheap motel. His self-service had been canceled weeks ago. The phone rang in my house, but seeing Julian's name appear on the caller ID, I let it go to voicemail. The final confrontation could wait. Julian arrived at my front door at 7:30 p.m. on a cold November evening, 3 months after losing the house. His finger hovered uncertainly over the doorbell for a full minute while I watched him silently from the living room window, debating whether to even answer. When I finally opened the door, I did not invite him inside. Julian's appearance truly shocked me. Unshaven, wearing a wrinkled shirt and cheap jeans, he looked like he had aged 5 years and 6 months. His obvious weight loss and utterly defeated posture contrasted sharply with his former arrogance. "Dad, I know I messed up terribly." His voice shook as he launched immediately into a rehearsed speech about finally understanding his mistakes. I listened passively from the doorway as he described living in a cramped studio apartment above a laundromat, working miserably at Pete's service stop for minimum wage, and Celeste leaving him permanently for her ex-boyfriend, who owned a local restaurant chain. "I've learned my lesson about what really matters," he claimed. When he switched tactics, suggesting I must be lonely in this big, empty house, and offering to finally be the son Mom always wanted him to be, I immediately recognized every manipulation technique he was deploying. "When is your mother's birthday?" I asked suddenly. Julian paused, then guessed wrongly. "June 15th. What was her favorite flower?" "Roses." Another wrong answer. Eleanor loved daisies. I corrected him. My profound realization was complete. Julian had never truly known Eleanor at all. His growing frustration with my pointed questions quickly revealed his true nature. The old entitled, demanding tone gradually crept back. "This is ridiculous." Just tell me what you want me to say. Eventually, his real purpose emerged, desperate and raw. Okay, yes, I need help. The eviction notices. The rent is due. He launched into desperate promises to pay me back when he got on his feet, followed by the thinly veiled suggestion that I was wealthy enough to help family. Julian still saw me only as an ATM. His final manipulation involved Eleanor. Mom would be heartbroken to see us like this. She always believed in second chances. I miss her too, Dad. We both loved her. For a fleeting moment, I wavered, remembering Eleanor's kind, forgiving heart. Then I realized this entire performance was exactly what Eleanor had feared most. You want to know what your mother really thought? I asked. I retrieved Eleanor's hidden journal from her nightstand and read her own haunting words aloud. I'm worried Julian only loves our money. What if we raise a child who can't love? Julian's shocked silence told me everything. Eleanor died knowing what you really are. I said calmly. She changed her will before dying. She left you nothing because she knew you'd waste it all. Julian's mask finally dropped completely. His angry threats about contesting the will and calling me senile revealed his true, vindictive nature. His final, cruel words, I hope you die alone in this house, gave me complete satisfaction at finally seeing his true, hideous character. I stepped back and quietly closed the door. Julian pounded on it repeatedly for several minutes while I walked calmly to the kitchen and made a cup of tea, as if nothing profound had just happened. When his car finally drove away, I sat in Eleanor's favorite chair, holding her journal, feeling completely at peace for the first time since her death. Looking at our wedding photo, I said quietly, It's finished, my love. 1 year later, I walked through Riverside Cemetery on a sunny May morning. I carried a fresh bouquet of daisies to Eleanor's grave. Birds sang sweetly in the oak trees, while spring flowers bloomed along the walking paths. I looked healthier and more at peace than I had in years. Kneeling beside Eleanor's polished granite headstone, I carefully arranged the new daisies, while speaking softly about the Eleanor Victim Memorial Foundation's thriving first year. We had awarded 20 scholarships to deserving students. We had donated $200,000 to cancer research in Eleanor's name. The community center dedication was planned perfectly for Eleanor's birthday next month. Julian works at Pete's service stop on Highway 12. I reported matter-of-factly. His divorce was finalized. Celeste remarried her restaurant owner. Julian lives in complete social isolation and financial struggle. I felt no satisfaction in his suffering, only profound justice. Leaving the cemetery, I stopped briefly at Morning Glory Diner. Julian worked behind the counter, wearing a stained uniform. Our eyes met across the diner. His shocked recognition and visible shame were palpable as I calmly ordered a coffee, treating him exactly like any other service worker. How are you doing, Dad? Julian's voice carried genuine humility for the first time. I'm well, thank you, I replied. I know sorry isn't enough, he said quietly. No, it isn't, I agreed. Julian's unexpected admission surprised me. I understand now what I lost. It was never about the money. Was it? You wanted me to love you, not your wallet. Your mother won that too, he admitted. For the first time, Julian's tears seemed genuine. I did what I had to do. I explained. Eleanor would have approved. I have no regrets about any of it. I know, Julian accepted. I deserved all of it. Yes, you did, I confirmed. When Julian asked if there was any way back, I answered him honestly. I don't know. Maybe. You have to prove you've really changed, not with words. Show me through your actions. I described my new life. Volunteer work at the community center, new friendships with other devoted volunteers, and Sunday dinners with the Johnson family, whose daughter received a foundation scholarship. I was happily dating Grace, a kind widow from church. My life was now full of purpose and genuine relationships. Visiting Sarah Peterson, our first scholarship recipient, brought deep satisfaction. Her overwhelming gratitude for the opportunity to attend nursing school. Her heartfelt letter to Eleanor's memory, proudly displayed on the foundation website. Eleanor's memory lived on powerfully through education. Driving home past Julian's old house, I saw the Ramirez family had completely transformed it into a home filled with love and gratitude. Mr. Ramirez waved warmly from the garden Eleanor once tended. Children played joyfully where Julian once played. The house now embodied everything Eleanor had valued. That evening, I prepared dinner in the kitchen I once shared with Eleanor, setting one place without sadness. My phone rang with Grace calling about our weekend plans. I smiled, the first genuine happiness I'd felt since Eleanor's death. Standing in the garden at sunset, gently pruning Eleanor's rose bushes, I felt the deep peace of a man who fought hard for justice and definitively won. My certain knowledge that I had truly honored my wife's memory brought complete satisfaction. Going to bed early, I slept soundly for the first time in 2 years, dreaming of Eleanor smiling and telling me, "You did the right thing, Victor. I'm proud of you." Justice was served. Love had required incredibly tough choices, but they were the right choices. Rest in peace, my love,